Good morning. All right. We're rocking and rolling. All right, everybody, welcome to day 3 of Iris University. We're going to have a lot of fun today and learn some new things. So one of the things that I am most excited about, and to give you a little bit of history, you may know this or you may not know this, but when we started out in 2010, our website was transactionreporting.com. It was not Iris CRM, it was transactionreporting.com, where the goal of the business was to provide reporting across multiple processors. So what makes me excited is that we've grown significantly to not just have a reporting aspect, but many mechanical aspects as well. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about is a very powerful mechanical two-way process that we've established for dispute reporting and dispute responding. And that is a feature that is no longer in just a one-way reporting sync where you're notified when a merchant gets a chargeback on day 0, but you also have the ability, if you have the features enabled on the processor level, to have the merchants, as well as you and your ISO staff, be able to respond directly to disputes when they come in. So I do have to let you know that the feature is available for Fiserv, Omaha, Fiserv North, and TSYS Wholesale only. Unfortunately, it's not, as far as the mechanical part of the responding, is not available with other processors because they don't have APIs or capabilities to provide that type of reporting. If they ever do, we will absolutely integrate it, but with those two processors, it does cover probably 70% or 80% of the market. So if you do end up working with those processors or you have those today, you'll be able to take advantage of the features that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to pull up a merchant, and the features work the exact same way for both TSYS and Fiserv sides. So there's really, the way we connect is different, but the way you would experience and use the system is identical. So if you do not have dispute reporting management enabled, you would still see the data for retrievals and chargebacks on day 0 that they're posted. So the benefit of Iris is that when these chargebacks do come in, you have the ability to automatically, through the system, text message the merchant, email the merchant right away, taking the onus off of you that if they don't respond to that chargeback, whether it's $1, $5,000, etc., they will lose that. So we actually help to push the merchant forward with replying by the due date. So if you do not have the dispute reporting function, the dispute management functionality enabled, they would still have to respond through a traditional means through either a portal or a fax. Yes, that does exist, etc. So this information comes from the processor, but once you do have the dispute management functionality enabled, you are going to start seeing these reply buttons appear. So this functionality is very strong in the sense that you have a lot of information about what is going on, about the disputes themselves and why they're happening. And so do the merchants when they log into the portal. So that you can see the due date, what the reason code is, additional information like the case number. So a lot of the information that you're typically most likely contacting the chargeback department to find things about and correspond about, all of the information is here for you in a single place so that you can review this information. So when the reply button becomes available, if you go ahead and click that, you or the merchant would be able to write their story /response /explanation. They could upload any type of documentation that they would provide as any type of supporting response as per usual. And you could actually submit that response. Everything gets time-stamped, recorded, and then the merchant knows that this has been responded and it's reflected in the system. So really, one of the things that we hear from our clients that is very useful is when you establish a merchant-facing user account at a high-volume location, maybe a nightclub, a restaurant, anything that has high-volume potential of tickets, and they do get them a lot based on their business type, these merchants typically have a person in the company whose responsibility becomes to be the chargeback management person. It might be the GM, it might be the GM's assistant, something like that. But this becomes one of their favorite tools because typically what these people do is they'll save for a week all of the disputes that have come in, and they've created a process where they can respond to everything all at one time. So they can pull invoices from their POS, whatever was sold, et cetera, and create those. So this actually empowers them significantly to be able to respond to the disputes right away without having to fax something, get the confirmation, cross your fingers they got it, don't call back in 2 days to find out that they got it, they didn't get it, the processor didn't get it, you have to send it back. So it is a completely digital process. So any questions about anything I said so far? That's awesome. Yes, you got it, man. So this is very cool. So this was an example of a TSYS merchant, but let me show you a Fiserv merchant. I think we have Joe's Steakhouse. Yep. So after a response is sent by the merchant, the reply button turns into a details button. So that's how you know that there's a response. And if you actually click on these images, so all chargeback files actually come as TIFF documents from the issuers. That's just a standard that they talk with the processors. So it's an image file. It's not a PDF, but it'll open in any editor, browser, etc. So the actual letter that the merchant would receive in the mail is available on day 0 in the system. And then there are push notifications that go out to the merchant saying, hey, you got a chargeback, and it has all of the info, case number, amount, every transaction date, amount, all the things that they would need to do to reference and get the data to tell their story and respond right through the system. When the response is posted, it would be provided in a separate section so the merchant and you can always see what they actually responded. So currently, if you're following a process where this is not an integrated process and the merchant is responding themselves, you have no oversight and you cannot help consult them about best practices about the way that they respond to chargebacks. Merchants try, they do their best, and some do a great job, but some just need a little bit of help. And if you don't know what they're saying and they're just describing what they're saying, you don't really have that ability. So this allows you to provide for your merchants the ability to even help them with best practices of responding and for different types of industries. Overall, it's a very useful process. So there's a lot of data that comes through from the processor to be able to respond to this, or the merchant can, of course, choose not to respond, and that is their decision. So on the Fiserv side, which is what we're looking at right now, you can see the status, and there's a little bit more data just in different records, if necessary, kind of like more advanced features. So these come back from the issuer and from the processor as well if there are any additional notes that are posted. See? The dispute was ruled in the favor of the merchant. A credit will be issued. So that's what a responded to chargeback already looks like. On the reply action, very similar, as I mentioned, to the TSYS side. Any questions, concerns? Okay. Yes. So the question is the merchant sending you the info to respond, and do you have to post it, or can the merchant post it themselves? If the merchant responds through here, it absolutely goes directly to the processor without you having to do anything. Most of the time, it is going to be the merchant. You want the merchant to respond. You don't want to be a point of breakage. You don't want that heavy lifting. You don't want to be an assistant. You don't want to carry the paperwork. Give them the tool. Let them bang their head against the wall as much as they want to anytime they get a dispute. Yes? Yep. Yep. Yes, absolutely. Yep, updates, due dates, whatever you need, statuses, it's all fully, and the merchants get notified via email or pop-up notification or mobile app without even having to be logged into the system. So if it's an owner that just has an account but they never log in, they're going to get notifications about all of the stuff that happens. So I could actually show you what the alerts originally look like coming via SMS so that you can actually see what they get, and then I could show you the email side. And I know Jaren's going to cover some text messaging and email capabilities in much more detail, but just to give you the flavor of the automation that you don't have to do anything about, this just happens, I will show you what that looks like now. So if I go to communications, one second. Oh, one second. Jaren, would you mind, actually, hold on one second. Sandbox. So you got to go and manage my user class permissions to enable the sandbox. So you'll see how this is done, and you could do this yourself as well. So we have a feature called the sandbox that allows you, while you're meeting with the merchant, doing a proposal, you can demo them this feature before they're even a customer, the same way I'm about to show you now. So I'm an administrator. I just have to enable it for myself. Sandbox? Only ours? Okay. So let me think. Do you have your laptop? Can I plug it? Oh, it's going to mess it up. Ideas? So let me see. He's going to open up his laptop, and we're going to get a volunteer with a cell phone number, and he's going to shoot it off to you, and you will see what's going to happen. So while we wait, let me show you the email side. We can get back to the SMS in just a second. So I'm going to go to Manage Email Templates. And this is going to be the email side of the house. And the merchant can get both and or. So if they want both, they want one, completely up to them. So in the dispute management section, we have actually our own section here. There are a bunch of different notifications that happen, which you can actually take a look at and edit yourselves as well. So when the chargeback first comes in, let me see, initial chargeback notification, it looks like this. So this is a template which already exists on all of your sites. So the moment you were enabled the feature, this would become active. You don't have to do anything. All the blue sections are actually interactive placeholders that automatically populate from the data that comes into the system. So if the merchant has the email notifications enabled, all of this data would be sent to them. And this is the kicker right here. You want to make sure they're being nudged to do this themselves. So this is the initial chargeback notification or the initial retrieval notification. It looks the same way. Then we have chargeback updated. You asked what happens when the case gets updated. This is the updated information. So all of these things like dispute status right here, they change. And they could also click through right here and log into the portal. It'll bring them directly to the exact merchant themselves to the chargeback tab. So all the info would be right here. So in addition to that, there's also a confirmation when the reply is posted. So if it's person A, as I mentioned in my example, an assistant, everybody else that has an account also gets notified. Yep. Mm-hmm. So the question is if you can submit responses to not integrated processors manually, and the answer is no. Because if you could submit to it, that would mean we would have the integration. So you would have to use that processor's tool to be able to submit the actual dispute. So yeah, it has to be an integrated one. So TSYS or Fiserv will absolutely work. So when the dispute gets posted, you get a notification confirmation. If for whatever reason there's a failed submission, for example, they uploaded a file that's too big and it gets kicked back, or there's a rendering issue when they submit it and then the issuer kicks it back, things happen. Transmission issue, there would be a notification that, hey, this reply was not submitted, go do something, and it lets the merchant know as well, so they can go in and fix certain things. Sometimes the processor systems go down to submit these disputes into them, so or they get delayed. So these are things, there are fail-safe methods behind the scenes that also notify the merchant that they should still be responding to a dispute. And then, my favorite features overall are the the reminders. So if the merchant has not responded at all to the dispute and it's still due, there's going to be a reminder sent on 7 days before the due date, 3 days before the due date, and finally, last day being tomorrow is the last notification. So at this point, if the merchant has not responded, you've done everything you possibly can as the ISO supporting them, and at this point, the merchant has probably made a conscious decision to not respond to the dispute, and they cannot claim they didn't receive the mail, they can't claim anything. It's really up to them at that point. So these are the email sides. Any questions? Sure.
When that dispute comes out for that last final day, does it notify us too, so that maybe if I wanted to provide additional service to that customer and reach out to them from the phone and tell them, hey, we sent these emails, you haven't gotten them. So are we in the loop on that? Does it like notify us when we log into Iris or something that says, hey, these one-day reminder disputes have gone out to your customers?
I understand your question. So there's a report, which I'm going to show you next, called Dispute Reporting, which shows you everything across the whole site, and you could sort it by due date. You wouldn't want to be notified about every dispute by email because there are merchants that get hundreds and thousands of them over a month. So to get an email every single time, that would be a little tough, but there's a full report where the same exact way what you're asking that you can do. So for ISOs that take risk, we like to say, have your coffee and have a little bit of Iris dispute management reporting in the morning. So one of the actions there becomes, you click here. Yeah, we'll do it. Cool. Yeah, so this is actually the report. Yeah, have a seat. Then we'll jump right into that. Thanks, Jaron. So this is the report which shows you all of the disputes, and you could sort them by due date, you could filter them by processor. So if you have Fiserv and TSYS merchants all in one system, you can do that. You can filter them. You could even export this. You could send it to people to say, okay, here are your delegated accounts. Go call everybody, make sure that it's all good. So typically what clients would do is they would sort it by the response due and by the dispute amount. So you want to start at the top, the closest, and kind of work your way down. So the $5,000 chargeback due tomorrow will take precedence over a $10 chargeback due tomorrow because you only have so much time in the day. And of course, the merchants would appreciate that significantly. Even if they say, I chose not to respond, there is absolutely no harm for you having to reach out to them to care and show that you care, to be proactive. Because a little bit, yeah, in that sense, but it certainly puts everything in the perspective of positivity, and you've done everything you can to enable them with the tools, the information, and everything else. And the next time it happens, they'll know what to do anyway. So it's also a coaching opportunity in that regard. So this is a very powerful report. This is located under My Merchants, Dispute Reporting. So this dispute reporting tool, by the way, is compatible with every processor that we have integrations with, even if the responding functionality is not there. So you can still find merchants and disputes that have not been responded to, even though they cannot respond to it through Iris. But let's say, for example, FIS, WorldPay. We have an integration with them, but you cannot respond to the dispute through Iris. You could still have the usability of this report to see if the merchant responded because the due date would be here. So you could do this today in your system. This is available. Any questions? Yep. Hi, Shiva.
So we spoke about the initial response from the merchant for a chargeback, but today's scenarios, some of the chargebacks go to arbitration. Mm-hmm. So do we have any tools, or the report has anything that shows that it is pending for arbitration?
Yeah, that's a status. Absolutely. Pre-arbitration is a status.
Can they represent the arbitration from the system? Because there is a $500 penalty if they lose it.
Anything you can do through Fiserv's dispute management tool, you could do through here. Same exact thing. So if it's a function in Dispute Manager, you could do the same thing in the respond. If there is no ability to respond and the response is closed, then it won't. We can't like circumvent the system. We're just integrating to the tool that the processor essentially provides. But yeah, you could respond to any status up until the closing of the case.
So earlier you showed a response for a chargeback that says the chargeback has been disputed in your favor, the funds will be credited. So but when you do the reporting on the CRM for deposits and stuff, it shows on a red color text when the chargeback adjustment has been made, but it never shows the chargeback adjustment being credited back to the merchant. Do you have anything in the roadmap to address that? So that sometimes, when they pick up a phone and say, hey, a week ago I was debited for my chargeback, I did the representation, you told me that the funds are being credited back to my account, but I don't see it. 99.99% it comes as a single settlement back to the merchant.
Right.
The merchant is more worried about the funds that are deficit in their deposits, and they don't care about if they get excess in their deposits.
So I'm not sure what you mean by the dispute not being part of it, because it's definitely part of the deposit. It's so if
one combined settlement.
but that's because that's the way the processor reports it. So we just have to be careful to say that it's not reported. It's definitely reported that they get the charge.
But it's
it's
not
not
reported
That's
on
right.
the solution.
That's right, because it's not coming through itemized from the processor side. The chargeback has its own identity and its own adjustment code, while when the deposit comes back, unless maybe you have it set up for the reporting side, you know how you could separate interchange fees, billing, and everything else. If you set that up, that it doesn't get commingled into a single deposit, then it would come through as an adjustment. But if you're not setting that up on the deposit and the separation, then it gets deposited as so. If the merchant did $900 in sales and won a $100 chargeback, they will see a $1,000 deposit in Iris. Okay. So it's kind of.
But it takes time for us to do the reconciliation.
That's true.
The adjustments are very easily visible, whereas the credit they get back isn't.
I mean, we'd have to look at what you're talking about, because I'm not familiar with specifically what you're saying. We've never heard of that. I think we heard it's actually
May I give you like a scenario?
Yeah, I would actually like to see the situation in your Iris.
Pull up a merchant that has a chargeback. If you go to the deposits tab, there will be a line item that says adjustments, and that whatever the chargeback it is, that will be taken out of their bank account. So if they are expecting a $1,000 settlement and there is a $100 chargeback, they would have only credited $900 on that particular day.
I'd have to see that. So this is a demo site. I don't have a way to pull that up right now, but if
I can send you some screenshots that to explain what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course. You could definitely do that. That's available. So you have the ability on the processor side to set up deposit or fee reporting as deep or as summarized as you want. So the data will always reflect that side of the configuration. That's usually done at the time that the merchant is boarded, that you set up the statement like recap or daily, any of the fees. If it's just one line that says fees, or you want interchange, adjustments, etc., all of that gets broken down. So that is definitely able to be controlled during the setup process. I am very confident that if the merchant is getting a dispute credit, it does reflect in the system.
Not distinguishedly. That's the point. It
Yeah.
does
So
reflect.
so your question is, how do you distinguish it? So we'd have to look at the merchant, how it was set up, and how the reporting came through, and then the opposite. And really, to verify that would be going to the processor's tool for that exact one and looking at how it's reported there.
No,
as
you
well.
mentioned when the chargeback adjustment is made, there is a specific code for it. That's what Iris picks up, and it says, irrespective of how the settlement, the merchant is set up in the system, if there is an adjustment, like money being taken out of their account, so Iris points that out with a red color text, saying that as an adjustment.
There's also black adjustments, which are credits. We do have that. Black adjustments are credits, absolutely. We have that.
I haven't seen that.
Okay.
My apologies.
Yeah, no, it's definitely there.
Okay.
Definitely.
We should.
Yeah, it's just not red. That's the thing. Yeah, so if you pull up any merchants, we could take a look at it. Okay. Nah, no color changes for that. Enough colors. But yeah, it does say ADJ when the credit does. Well, I mean, if any type of credit, it could be fees, it could be anything. It does come back as a black color. So let's take a look at a specific case offline. Okay.
Will do.
Cool.
Thanks.
Cool.
Any roadmap for PIN debit adjustments?
I'm not sure that they're not there now, so you'd have to show me an example saying that's
No,
because I'm
PIN
not.
debits, they don't fall through the same thing.
Oh.
PIN debits are handled a different way by Fiserv.
Is it available in Dispute Manager today?
I don't think so.
Okay, so then no.
That's why I said anything on the roadmap.
It would be based on what's available on the processor side. So if they put it in there, it would be available, definitely. We can't circumvent the tool to which we integrate. We're in, I guess, in a kind of stalemate in that way, you can say.
Got it. Thank you.
Cool. Questions? Looks good. Useful? You guys use this today? The dispute management? Okay, awesome. Good to hear. So, wanted to show you an example of a text message and how it arrives. Steve, do you want to be a volunteer?
Sure.
All right. Steve, what is your cell phone number?
734.
Uh-huh.
731.
731.
0521.
Okay. If you're in the same site, you could actually chat me a screenshot of that and I could pull it up if you want. I am admin 4.
I was like, I don't know Ashley.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull it up. Yeah, your Ashley and your DBA is IRS CRM.
Ashley's Bagels. Hello, Ashley. This is your merchant services provider. Ashley's Bagels received a chargeback in the amount of $1,234.50. Date of transaction is 10/20. Please call the 800 number to resolve this dispute.
So that would be a fully automated template where the DBA gets populated, the name of your company gets populated, and then everything else is fully dynamic. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, the merchant can look at their phone anywhere in the world and be able to get a text message with exactly what's happening, so they don't have to even check their mail or anything else like that. So there's an SMS side, and then there's an email side there as well. So let's see if I could show you a screenshot for everybody else to be able to see that. Yeah, I have a hardwired internet line and he's on Wi-Fi and the Wi-Fi is a little slow, so just give us a sec. Get some food. It might still be a little warm. It's just admin. I mean, you can message all of them and say hi and I'll just respond back. It's just called admin user. Maybe not that one. Because you're a system admin, so I won't be able to see you. Did it open? Nope. Not seeing it. Oh, there you are. Oh, okay. Hi. Okay. All right, so interesting. Okay. Is this the text you got? Cool. So this is just a sandbox to simulate the automated process. So where you see the word Ashley would be the merchant's first name that's set up with the user account. Where it says your merchant services provider would be your acronym of your company or the actual full company name. And then Ashley Bagels would be the DBA of the merchant. So the key data points are the amount, the transaction, and then your office phone number. Or if you want them to contact the processor directly to do the dispute, you could place that as a template. So you have full edit ability. If you want to add something else, some emojis, go for it, type of thing. Questions, concerns? You like it? So this is a tool that our clients typically use to actually win the business of the merchant, as opposed to competing on rates and other things. This becomes part of the sales process. That like, hey, Miss Merchant, let me show you what we can do. Yep, and or both. So it could be the husband prefers one way, the wife prefers it to get the notifications a different way, and their accountant prefers it a third way. So it's really any way that they want. Unlimited users can get notified overall. Thanks, Jaron. That was very helpful. So that's good. Okay, cool. So on the topic of dispute reporting, dispute management as a whole, any other questions before we go into the next section, which is going to be text messaging? No? Okay, perfect. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Jaron, our product lead.
Is it ringing? Oh, okay. All right, so we will look at sending SMS and email messages. So an important thing for any user sending email messages within the system and to confirm their text message number in the site is to go to their user account. So if you click on your name at the top of the screen and then open the settings page, you'll see your own current mobile number set in the site. If you want to use SMS forwarding for SMS messages that come in on your own leads, you can select that box and optionally set a schedule for that forwarding to occur. For sending emails, users, especially within the sales side, will want to make sure to sync their Gmail or Outlook messages or use SMTP along with IMAP for any other providers of emails. Once that is set up, any messages that the user sends out within the system will use that service that's connected to send and receive the messages for the user. So if we now go back to the user's lead that they're viewing, let's go here to a lead. We'll see any email field within the lead that's been enabled with that type of field will have an email button next to the email address. So we can select that button and get the quick email pop-up window on screen. The sender name and the sender email will default for the user. They can be edited. And then the contact name and contact email will pre-populate based on the lead field that was clicked to send the email. You have the option to validate the email address here using the credits within your site, as well as sending a CC and BCC recipients in the fields below. Your template list will be available based on the user's template that you have access to. If you're an admin or manager, you can configure more templates or have someone else configure other templates for you. When you select a template, it should fill in the subject by default and optionally a preview text, which will show in the email inbox as a kind of preview to the email without having to open it. You can edit the subject, or click in the body of the message, or click the edit button to edit it. Then select attachments, either from the lead or from your device. And then when editing, you'll see a full screen of the ability to format and otherwise update the content of the message. Basic formatting is available, as well as HTML editing and the ability to use custom placeholders from the lead fields to pre-populate information from the lead that you're viewing. Once the editing is complete, click Done, and then you'll be able to either schedule the email to send in the future or send it immediately. Once the email is sent, if you navigate to your Notes tab, you'll see a record of the sending email down below. It won't show here yet because I just sent it, but on refresh it will show there. And you can also filter within your notes to just see only emails that were sent. So if you unselect the other types of notes, you could isolate just the emails that were sent, and also any that were received if your user has their email inbox synced. So here's the email that I just sent. It says it was a few seconds ago. Shows the message. There's other options here that I have for replying, forwarding, looking at the email itself, deleting the note, or pinning the note if I find it to be very important. So if you do get a response to an email, you'll get a notification based on your user's settings. Remember, if we go to our settings for notifications, you have the option to see email received notifications here. And so if the email came in, we could see a pop-up. It would also show as a note here that shows that the email came in. And you could respond to it from within the lead. Any questions on sending emails? Okay, so let's go look at the editing of the email templates. So from the Manage menu, if you have access, you have email templates available. And within the email templates page, you'll see a few different tabs at the top, and this determines where these emails are used. So for anything that's sent from a lead, or if you're in the profile of a merchant viewing the lead, you'll have quick lead emails. System emails are for notifications that typically you receive or potentially a merchant receives. Proposal email templates are just used if you're using the proposal generator and sending emails. And dispute responder emails are just used for the dispute responder tool. So we'll look at editing the quick lead emails because that's most likely what you'll be using and what you'll need to edit. When you see the list of emails, it's going to look very much like other configuration pages. You have a list of them. You can drag and drop to rearrange the list, delete them if not needed, control permissions for access, who can send that email template, determine any attachments that should be always set on that template when it's used, copy the email template to make another version that's similar, do a quick preview, or go into edit mode. In edit mode, you'll notice the same formatting options as we saw when sending the email. Basic formatting is available here, HTML editing here, and also the ability to use placeholders to insert information from the lead that you're sending the email from. You can also type the @ key and get a list of the available options for quicker selection. So let's say I type @DBA, and I want the DBA field from the Business Info tab of the lead. I would select that. Do note that when you select options that say merchant, those would only be used in the merchant-facing emails meaning that the system emails that use merchant information. So if you're editing a quick email that's used on a lead, never select the options that say merchant in the front. You'll see additional options within the email template for tracking when it's opened, alerting you when it's opened, if the email template should open in auto edit mode when you pick it on the lead, and if you should track visitors. Now, tracking visitors is a special functionality that allows you to see if you use links to your website in an email, when people view those email links and click them to view your site, and then track subsequent activity on your website. This is a feature that also connects into our visitor tracking module, which is available from the email metrics page. Also, just like when sending an email manually, you can set predetermined CC and BCC recipients to copy other people on those emails. Any questions on editing email templates? Pretty easy. Do you do it much? Not yet? Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Well, the good news is also SMS templates. Yep. And you have unlimited text messaging from your site. So you have a predetermined number that's already set on your site when you signed up. If you signed up with a toll-free number, you'd get a toll-free text number. If you signed up with an actual area code phone number, when you created the site, it would use that area code to get a number for you so it looks local to you. So SMS templates, as you see, there's quick lead SMS templates, also dispute responder SMS templates. Most likely the dispute responder templates, you would not edit those, or you would just barely edit the text a little bit because it has a lot of placeholders that dynamically fill in info. But for the quick lead SMS messages, you'll see there's probably some defaults that are already in your site. Like there's one for sending out invoices, but you can make example ones. Like if you want to demonstrate like what we did where we sent you the text message, like here's what, when you're selling to the merchant, you're talking to them on the phone, here's what it's going to look like when you get a chargeback text from us. You got them on the phone right then, text them, they see it. Just like the process we just did. Yeah. So yeah, it's a quick way to be able to show that. And then any other texting you want to incorporate into sales process or even the support process, because the text message number always works. They could say, if you open it up to them, you could say, send me a picture of the terminal if you have a problem, you know, what's on the screen. Maybe they can't describe it really well. Just take a picture, because they can send pictures in the text. And you can also send pictures back. So we'll actually take a look at that right here. When we go back into the lead, let's say I go to, now this is a fax number field, but it actually has the SMS option enabled. So it says click to send SMS. So let's see, 734-731-0521. Okay. What did I miss? There we go. That's right.
You have a good memory.
Okay. When I typed it in, I think it was a couple boxes over, so it wasn't right. Okay, so we're gonna click send SMS and see, it's gonna say that the from number, this is the number that's assigned in the site. So if you go into your site and you see the number that it says it's from, if you don't like what's there, you can contact support and say like, yeah, because if it's a toll-free number, it won't do images. So it just kind of depends. You'd have to look at your site, or if you just don't agree with it. Support can ask a developer to go into our phone system backend and switch it out. Just generate a new one. So let's say it's going to come from that number. I can pick from a template, or I can just start typing. Hey, Mike, do you want pricing for a merchant account? If I'm not assigned to the lead already, maybe I'm a manager going in, an admin, there's a checkbox, assign yourself to get notified of replies. That way you're more affiliated with that lead, it shows you go with it. Or if you just want to send it and let the agent who's assigned get the replies, leave the box unchecked. So let's send it.
Oh, so that will immediately attach that to whoever's on the account.
Yeah, because it'll be bound to that lead and the user is assigned to the lead, they'll know about responses as long as they have that turned on in their notification settings. So let's see here. See how long it takes to come in.
Oh, it's like instantaneous.
Yeah. It's got to get through this concrete.
There it is.
You got it? So if you could, respond to it, but include a picture in the text. You can take a picture of your plate or a picture of a dog or something. Anything we can show on screen. And okay. Okay, now I'm going to go check my settings, make sure I've got notifications on for SMS received. Yeah. So I have it turned on. I did assign myself to the lead and I saved your number on it. That's the most important part. The number has to be saved there so when it comes in, it knows which lead it goes with. Because really what you could do is, let's say you have this number that's in your Iris site for texting. You could put that on a billboard and say, text a picture of your statement, we'll give you a quote. So they don't even have to be a lead to text into you, they just need to know your number. If it comes in and there's no lead that matches, it just notifies all your admins, and then you can make a lead.
It says sent, it doesn't say delivered.
Yeah, we'll see. What? So let's take a look at the lead. Now, what we may have to imagine, let's say the concrete is blocking it or demo site quirks. I'll get a pop-up in the top corner. I don't have to be in this lead, of course, to get notified that you responded. It could be days later, weeks later, years later. Doing anything else in the site, I get a pop-up if my notifications are on. It says, this person replied, they sent you this text. Click on it, it takes me to the lead. If you sent a picture, I'll see it in there.
Does it come in the corner like all the other
Yeah,
notifications do? So like, oh, okay.
yeah. And with the updated notifications, you see the bell that's up there next to your name. You have that slide out panel. So, currently you get the pop-ups that show there. And if you click or close it, they're kind of gone.
Yeah.
So now we have mark as read. You can have the panel, you can always get back to them and say like, oh, I clicked off of 3 of them. I need to go find one of those. Yeah. Or you can, what we're gonna have is that pop-up section there, because now we're using the full width of the screen the whole time. You can slide that around. It's like a little docked panel, so you can move it. So you say like, oh, I need to see the right side of the screen. Let me move that to the bottom.
Oh,
or move it over to the other side. Just get it out of the way for a second. So you'll have much more control about the notification visibility and access to them. So great improvement there. So we'll imagine that text message came back in. Now you as the admins, now it says delivered? Okay. Okay. What we'll see is, you see in the communications section of your menu, which is, you have tools right now in your menu bar with a lot of different reports, but we found that a lot of those things under tools either apply to the lead side or the merchant side or what we call communications. So we actually put those in their respective sections now. So there's no generic tool section, but we have communications, which is going to be phone if you use it, texting, and email. So as the admins, you can go to email metrics. You can see the full history of all emails that were sent, template usage, visitor tracking, if you do that for links that are clicked. And then for SMS, you have a very similar looking page, but it's going to show you the history of all the texting in the site. So if you just kind of want to audit, are people using this? We have this unlimited texting. It comes with the site. Might as well use it for people who feel capable with it. If you feel like your merchants are receptive to it, you can do that. And then also under the leads section, sales metrics, which you already have, sales metrics has these quick stats for you for people's activity. And one of those columns is SMS sent and received. So you can quickly see for a given date, you can filter it by certain users. What are people doing? So are they sending out text messages? Are those even getting replies? Same thing for emails, and then various other activity. So kind of key indicators of people's activity. What are they doing on the sales side? And then the far right is going to be, the outcome. Are they actually getting new accounts? This guy sends 50 emails, but he gets one new account. Another guy sent 10 emails and he got 5 accounts. So, what can we learn from that, or what can the other person do better? So the metrics, either within My Leads, your sales metrics, or in the communications where you have SMS metrics, email metrics, that's a good way for you to keep an eye on that activity. And then something that was always kind of buried within the administrative side was the full site email history. This is now available to you as the admins directly in that communications menu, so you can quickly get to it. This is the full history of all emails sent out on the site, not just those sent by users, but every notification to anybody. Yourselves, your users, merchants. You can search by date range down to the minute. You can see rates, so if maybe there were issues with sending, like fails and other bounces. And then you can also specify if you want to search for a specific word in a message or a message that went to someone specifically. So a merchant says, hey, I'm not getting these emails. You say, great, what's your email address? I'll type it into the search and see what's been sent out to them. And when you click onto an email, it's going to show you if it was actually sent or if there was a delivery error. So a lot of history. This has always been there. Now it's just going to be easier for you to get to real quick from your communications menu. Now, for the help desk, we're going to look at something related to that for the emails in the groups section. So it might seem a little bit out of the way because it's in the groups, but for groups, that's where we control a lot of things that are specific to a group, and that's because you can connect a help desk email inbox. Do you already do that? So let's say you have support at thinkmerchantservices.com. If people send an email to that, you could have that email inbox checked and just pull in and create tickets automatically in your site. You can respond to them and it'll use that email address to send out. And any response back and forth will just come back in as a comment on that ticket, and any new emails that come in will just make new tickets. So do you use Google or Outlook for your email hosting? Yeah, so as long as you can sign into that inbox, you can just click Gmail, put in the username and password. You don't have to do, host and port number and all that. Yeah. And the only other setting you have to pick then is when those emails come in and it creates a new ticket, what ticket type to default those tickets into. So you don't have to think too hard about this because you're not going to know what that ticket is because it could be any variety of questions. So usually what we recommend is just make a new ticket type called merchant email request or merchant inbound request, something generic, non-specific. So it's labeled as something, and then when your team reviews the actual ticket and looks at it, you can say, okay, this is about billing, it's about equipment, some other question, and then update the ticket type, which, as we saw from yesterday, may adjust who it gets assigned to so it goes to the right people. So this can be a really quick setup. Now, something else that's related to that, very similar, you'll see up above, for any lead emails that go out that says a note has been posted on a lead, you can also sync an inbox. So if, let's say a sales rep responds to an email that a note was posted to a lead, their response would just come right back into the lead. So if they say, well, I don't want to spend the time to click on the link and sign in and go post another note, just reply to the email and it'll go back into the lead. So this, it says lead emails, but notice in the tooltip, it's specifically about those lead comments or lead notes, as we call them, that specific notification. Let's get the microphone. Oh, Luis, he's got the microphone.
So we're using a Gmail. You're saying that they don't have to log back into a Gmail account? The notes will come back there?
Yeah, so
That's what you're saying?
for this setting, if you post a note onto a lead, to let's say it notifies your sales rep or a sales manager, you say, oh, we need to update this lead, or they called back in, they have a question, it notifies that sales rep by email. When they respond to that email, it just comes right back into the lead and will notify you too.
So that's any activity that you send a note to out of the system, it will automatically stamp it in the notes too.
Well, on the lead, we'll go back here to the lead. This specific setting right here, this is only for lead notes. So we'll show what that is here. So that's for me posting a note on this lead, like, hey, we need to reach out to them. And if I notify a sales rep, when they get that email, they can just respond to that email, and it comes back and posts a note directly here.
Okay, so you make the note and then you can select to send a notification out and the response is in the notes.
Yep,
Okay,
exactly.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And so the similar functionality on the help desk tickets is when you post a note on the ticket, note, comment, when somebody responds to that, it could be your staff, it could be the merchant, it's going to come right back in as a comment. So it could save them a few moments of signing back in and just, they want to give a quick response or paste something in, helps out make that process a little quicker. So any other questions on sending text messages or emails? How to connect those? Probably just waiting for Monday to get to use it.
And there's unlimited use of text, right?
Right.
In the system.
Yep. So each client site has their own unique text message number that we generate when you sign up. If you sign up with us and you provide a local phone number, this text message number will use this area code and a number from that area code.
Okay. And we can't bring over a text number that we already have.
You could port it over.
Port it over?
Yeah. So our system uses Twilio as the whole communications platform behind the scenes. You don't have to interact with them, but we would just have you port it over to that, and then that number could be there.
Okay.
And that's the same thing that works for our dialer system.
Because we, on our current system, we have like 4 different texts, but every agent has their own text number.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if that's...
For ours, we just use one number because it knows when a text comes in, let's say from a merchant, it knows which lead it goes with based on their phone number that they texted from, so it knows to notify that agent. So nobody needs to have their own number.
Okay, so is your database, can it be the database broke down between prospective and actual merchants? Can you use this as a marketing tool too, or only for just boarded merchants?
Oh, you could use it to market to anyone. So in the leads, you could keep track of prospects for anything that you sell. It could be for merchant services or anybody else that you want to message, and it could be for your active accounts.
Okay, because some of that lead contacts are huge. Those are kind of huge amount versus your actual merchants.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if there's not a limitation to the amount of contacts or leads in the system?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We don't like limits for you or anything.
I noticed.
Yeah. Any questions? Good? Okay, thanks. Well, we're just up on 10 o'clock. So we went through it pretty quick. But good questions. Thanks, everyone. You want to look at Esign more? Yeah. Did you catch it yesterday? Were you here? Okay, refresher. All right, great. Okay. So in our lead, our eApps tab may be called Esign within your lead, could be otherwise placed, but you'll find it, I'm sure. You've got your list of documents available for Esign. And remember, you can specify if you've got different documents. It could be the actual MPA, that's the most common that you send to the merchant. It could be forms for other services. It could be a DDA change form. It could be agreement to an agent. You could put an agent in as a lead if you want to keep track of them for recruiting purposes. In the nice way, we don't care. All we care is it's a PDF and it's got fillable fields, and you can map it from within Iris. So if you've got all those documents and you say, well, the agent only needs to be able to send out the MPA, the support team needs to be able to also send the DDA change form, our admins and managers need to be able to send agent agreements, you specify all of those permissions when you import those forms. So it's very easily done. You can specify it by user, user class, or group. So let's look at that page. I just clicked the handy little shortcut button at the top right. That takes me to my list of PDFs. We're going to have a lot listed here because of the demo site. You may have a few. You can categorize them. That makes it easy to see. Remember when we're back in the lead and you click the drop down, we have an applications category. Now, there's just one here under form. So you can break it out and organize them, just a visual way to kind of keep them organized in the list. But when you go to select them, you can also just type in a word and it will narrow down the results for what's available based on what you typed. So back in our list of PDFs, you've got our standard layout. You can remove a document from the list. You can see history of updates for it, which is important for accountability if you've got multiple people making changes. Permissions for who can send out this document. Attachments, which is very specifically if you want to have certain files come into it and where they will go in the system. So one neat feature, I don't think we'll be able to take a look at it here, but when you send out an e-sign document, you say, okay, I need to send out the MPA, but also they need to give me a void check. They need to give me their driver's license, whatever else you may need in the process. So in our e-sign screen, you can put in the page the ability for them to upload other documents in the page as part of the e-sign process. So it's one collection, everything in there. You could set that as required or optional. So they may say, well, I don't have the void check, but I want to sign the MPA. Let them do it. They can send you the void check after. So it's a nice way to be able to say, I'm getting everything at once and not worried about follow-ups. If they have it, they'll send it in. So the attachments is very helpful. Now the editing of a document here from our page. When we talk about editing the PDFs, generally we talk about Esign. Now, you may have some forms that most vendors are going to accept an Esign version of it, but if you say we only want to do basically a printed out copy, you can set the application type to just generic form, and that means it will never be listed in your Esign tab as an option for anyone, but you can still go to your attachments tab and generate it as a PDF pre-filled with the information in the lead that you already have based on what you mapped. It's just a difference in setting there, but probably most things you do, you'll pick e-signature as the application type, and then you'll see that gives us many more options for what to pick to configure it. So the standard settings here, display title, that's what you see when you pick it from the list. Document name, that's what the file will be called as you go through the process. There's a label setting here. That means when you generate the document and start the eSign process by sending the email, what will that original document be labeled as in your lead? Now there's a label down here. This means whenever the document is actually e-signed and completed, what label to use for it. So you may want to have a label up here of unsigned MPA, and down here the label is signed MPA. That way you can easily distinguish them in the attachments tab. Now the other settings here, we'll just work through those. Email template, that's the default email template. So when you go here and we pick the document and we click generate, you're going to get this screen after it generates the link, and it's going to have a pre-selected email template. So your setting that's over here, email template, is what is driving what is pre-selected here for the template. So you may have one email template that's applicable to MPAs, a different one that's applicable to DDA change form, a different one for agent agreements. It's all up to you, and you can edit those, of course, because they're email templates. Your next setting here is the sign template. So when the document is e-signed, you have an email that goes to the merchant, the person who signed it. It's going to copy the person who generated the link in the lead, and you have control actually over that here too. So signed notification, you can say we only want it to go a copy back to the merchant. Maybe we don't want the agent to receive a copy of the signed application. We only want it stored in the lead and to go to the merchant. You can specify that. And then you can also specify if the lead status should change when the e-sign is completed. So if you're in a lead and you send out an e-sign application to someone and you set the status to sent app waiting for signature, you can set it from here to say that when that document is e-signed, to change the status to receive signed app, ready for underwriting. So it automatically updates the status for you. You could have a status trigger set up separately to notify your boarding team to start reviewing the lead and all the documentation to make sure it's ready for boarding. And it's just one step removed from your process that's done automatically. You also have the option to set a password field from the document. Now you'll see from our handy little tooltip here that's got the explanation, it's going to use a specific field and the last 4 characters from that field to set a password on the signed document. So if you want to make sure that when that document is signed, not just anybody can open it later, Adobe will set a password using, let's say, the last 4 of the SSN. So you've got to be affiliated with that account, know the SSN of the owner to be able to open the document to see all the information within it. So a good security option you have there. Now the last 2 things here, confirmation page. This will be what the merchant sees or the person who signs it whenever they complete the signing process. So we have a default confirmation page. It's just a little paragraph of text with a signature that says, thank you for signing your document. We've sent a copy to you, but you can edit that text completely. And when you go to the eSign setup pages, you can also go into deep HTML editing, CSS, use images, and make a full page to show to the signer. And along with that, while the person is in the e-sign process, you have the help banner. So let's take a look at this over here. If I click on the link from the email, I can just preview it even before I've sent it, which is really nice. This is your help banner over on the right side. This is just an example image. It's not editable itself. This is just a flat image, but this gives you an idea of what you could put there. So you've got someone going through Esign, maybe they're a little bit overwhelmed or they have questions because of the document. You want to have them have basically a quick way to say, I need to talk to somebody, give them the phone number right there. You don't have to put it in part of the application or anything. It's just a little helper there. But it's an option you have. You don't have to do it, and the person can close it out if they don't need it there. But otherwise, they just go through the process and do the e-sign.
Do that bulletin can be edited to the agent's extension, or it's just global for the whole system?
It would be specific to that document that you're sending out. So it wouldn't be specific to the agent. Now, in the email that gets sent to them, that person's email address would be in their signature, so they would have it there too. Now, we're looking at all the e-sign activity that can go on within a lead. Let's close this out. And just like our emails and our texting, when you look at the Notes tab down below, there's going to be notes for e-sign activity. So I've got my filters turned on here, so I need to turn back on e-sign, check that box, and hit confirm. And if I had any e-sign activity, that would also show in the notes. So that's a quick way to be able to identify any of the e-sign notes. And also, this is a new feature for you. You can search your notes. So if you've got a lead with a long history, a lot of activity, and you don't want to use the filters, but you want to say, hey, I want to look to see anytime the word terminal was mentioned, or TID, or anything like that, you could just type it in to the search and find it. So it's going to filter down those notes for you. So that's a quick way, a nice newer feature to be able to filter down your notes. And for your managers and admins, most likely this is going to be a very useful report. On your home screen, you've got an e-sign tab. So within each lead, you can see, of course, the history for e-sign within it. If you've sent out any documents, those that have been signed. But if you want to see it more on a system level, you've got, and here's my little e-signed open notification, so it knows when the link's clicked. Here's a table that's going to show you the status for each different e-sign document that you have, the date ranges for them. You can filter by a specific user or specific groups if you're using groups to segment access, and see those documents. So if I click on the 5 under sent month to date, our lower table will show those 5 documents and all the information about them. So I can see when it was sent. We can see even specifics such as the IP address for additional security. And if the document is complete, we'll be able to view it from there. And with anything else, you can always export it from the table. So are you getting some ideas for using eSign? Yeah. So it's not, certainly not just for MPAs. Any other questions on it? Status triggers? Okay. You remember status triggers from yesterday afternoon? Okay, we'll go through it again. Okay, so from remember our handy updated menu on the left side has so many more options for you before that took multiple clicks to get to from the admin side. Now, if you go under Manage, right here, a single click, unless he might already have it expanded right there, lead statuses and triggers. So your complete organization of your sales flow and even the life cycle of your accounts is based on lead statuses. And we group those first into categories, and then each category contains statuses that you specify. So by default, your site has standard categories and statuses based on common merchant services terms. You've likely configured those, made them updated to match your own, but you can always change them and make updates later. So we see here, this site currently has a lot of different status categories. And they're kind of all over the place in order, but you'll see there's even status categories. Remember we talked about sending agent agreements. You could use a status category to keep track of agents or maybe sub-ISOs, affiliates, vendors, other partners, kind of your Rolodex, if anyone remembers what a Rolodex is, flipping through things. So we call it leads, that whole module, but it's really just whoever you're working with, you can keep track. And because, I'll show you a little bit later, you can organize the statuses and restrict who can use them. You can make sure, well, I'm doing, let's say, recruiting for referral partners and agents, but I don't want my agents to see those, or I don't want them to accidentally use those statuses. You can restrict those. So we'll see those settings in a moment. So first, we'll just look at editing a status category, which is very easy because you can just click and edit the name. So let's say I have the merchant is live status category. Let's say I want to change that to merchant processing. Just click and edit the name. You can specify which groups have access to that on that level. And then we have these additional settings. So these are from the last several months. These are the ones that get very specific into who can use these statuses, see the leads within these statuses, or if they can see the leads, if they can even edit them. So when you get, let's say, a lead that goes into this merchant processing category, you know that's been approved, it's got a mid, you're about to do deployment, it's going to start processing. What you don't want is a sales rep talking to that merchant and them saying, well, I need to update my bank account. Oh, I'll just go update on the lead, and then that'll fix everything. You don't want them to go make those changes. Because if they do, they might think that's going to help, and they're going to tell the merchant, oh, I did this, it's great, it took me a second to do, but it doesn't affect the actual account because that's not pushing anywhere else. So you want to lead restricted probably at certain times in the process from certain people. So that's one example, but you could even have restrictions for your support staff. Maybe, if it's still in the sales process, support should be able to see the leads just for, access, but not be able to make changes because there's no reason for them to make any changes yet. And then if you just don't want them to even be able to use it, when we talk about those status categories like for agent recruiting or referral partners, anything else that's not part of the sales process, just don't even let them pick that in the list. If there's only five options that are applicable in the sales process, don't show them 20 options because what's that going to do? Cause problems. They're either going to pick the wrong thing or they're just going to get confused, make delays, keep it simple. And then we also have our status color option. Now remember, we're just at the category level, that's the higher level, and then there's statuses within. So you can have a color for the entire category and all of the statuses within it, but you'll see when we get into editing the actual statuses within the category, they also have these same 3 settings and the color option. So let's cancel from here. Well, I'll hit save. We'll see that change. I changed merchant is live to merchant processing. It takes effect immediately, of course. Now I'll do add remove statuses. This takes me to the statuses within this category. Now a nice feature for this page is that when you're looking at the list of statuses, you'll see a count next to the name of the status, and that's going to show you how many leads are currently in the status. Just a quick report to give you an idea. Okay, is this getting used currently? How many are in there? Just a handy thing to see. If you need to move that status to another category, you can click the button for that. If you need to do status triggers, which we'll look at in a moment, you can do that. But we'll get into edit, which is going to look very similar to the edit, what we're in for the status category. But this is very possibly where you'll make changes for access of who can edit leads in the status, who can even see it in the list, or if they should see leads from this status at all in their site. And that's going to affect any searches, reporting, and notifications. So if they can't see the lead, we're not going to send them an email that says, hey, this lead is now available or has an update. And then finally, status color, just like on the status category. So here, you can click the little box and just click in and select a color. You've got a little spectrum over here to select. And once you pick it and hit choose, you'll see it'll fill in a color code here. That's a hex color code. You can find those online if you need to find a specific one, but otherwise, This is going to let you pick just a color from the screen. And then the big update with status triggers, you've got the ability to do a trigger on status change and also status age, which is going to apply to a lead staying in a status for a certain amount of time versus making a trigger happen immediately when a status is changed on a lead. So the options you have now, which are always growing, is the ability to do user notifications, that's to your own users in Iris, to do a notification by a field, which is going to take the email address in a certain field on that lead whose status changed and send an email to them. This could be useful for follow-ups to merchants during the sales process, automatic notifications after account approval, or follow-ups anywhere throughout the merchant lifecycle. Now, our new favorite feature here, if you're going to be getting into the help desk a lot more, is the ability to create a help desk ticket from a status trigger. So a good example of that is a lead goes to a status of approved, ready for deployment. You can have a ticket auto-created or prompt the user who changed the status so they can create a ticket for actually setting up the terminal, any equipment, gateways, and auto-assign that to people within your organization for completion. Any questions on the statuses or triggers? No? All right. All right, thank you. We'll pause there.